The debate over concussions and brain injuries is back in the spotlight today with the announcement that researchers at BU, Brigham and Women's, and the Cleveland Clinic have just gotten a $16 million federal grant to find a way to diagnose chronic traumatic encephalopathy, better known as CTE, during life. Right now, the diagnosis can only be made post-mortem. For those of you who don't know what CTE is, it's a progressive degenerative disease found in people with repetitive head trauma. It can lead to symptoms of dementia like memory loss, aggression, confusion, and depression. Joining me now is a man who's dedicated his life to research on these issues, once a defensive tackle for Harvard, then a pro wrestler. Chris Nowinski is co-founder and executive director of the Concussion Legacy Foundation. He's also co-founder of the CTE program at BU and author of the book Head Games, The Global Concussion Crisis. Chris, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
How would a living diagnosis of CTE change the way people think about that disease?
Well, it would change everything. I mean, right now we have to study brains when people pass away, and it makes it very slow to identify cases. We've identified nearly 200 cases in the last few years. But if we learn how to diagnose it in living people, we'll actually have a chance to test therapies and see how they do, so we can actually have a treatment someday for this disease.
And you've identified it in 200 cases over the past few years by getting athletes who are likely to suffer from this to agree to donate their brains for study after the
yeah, we reach out to families. Although these days there's so much awareness about this, most families call us when they lose usually their father or their son due to whatever circumstances. So we are actually, we keep getting more and more because there's more awareness.
Do you think, and I'm not a scientist, so I'm not entirely clear on the mechanics of this study, would it be helpful to have people participate who are in high-risk endeavors, like people who are professional football players, collegiate football players, who've sustained this sort of impact again and again over the course of their lives? And do you think that they will participate in this study?
Yes, that is what this study will focus on. It'll be primarily professional football players and collegiate football players versus control athletes who've never been hit in the head on a regular basis. And we focus on that because basically what we're seeing for risk factors for CTE, the more hits to the head you take, the longer you play, the earlier you start, the worse off you are. So getting professional football players, the reality is they're in probably the highest risk category along with boxers.
And just to be clear, will there be NFL players participating in this study? Okay.
Right, it's sort of a larger version of a study that Dr. Bob Stern led at BU already, where we had 100 former NFL players come into BU to be tested.
How close, for those of us who are not scientists, and you're studying to get your PhD right now, right?
Still, yes. Yeah.
Remind me, the discipline is neuroscience?
Behavioral neuroscience.
Behavioral neuroscience. Yes. Okay, for those of us who don't have that level of expertise, how close is a living diagnosis? Is it, just a few years away, some minor hurdles to clear, or is it really far away?
It's not really far away. I mean, science moves very quickly. I mean, in a lot of cases, we're always a few years away from this sort of diagnosis, but with this sort of large grant, and the first ever for this disease, our doctors say they think within 5 years we will have very strong accuracy in terms of diagnosing this in living people.
So as you know, CTE is in the news right now, not only because of this grant, but also thanks to the movie Concussion, which dramatizes Nigerian pathologist Bennett Omalu's struggle to get people to take the disease seriously. Let's take a look at a clip.
Do you have any idea the impact of what you're doing?
Yes, I do.
Do you understand the impact of what you are doing? If just 10% of the mothers in America decide that football is too dangerous for their sons to play, that is it. It is the end of football. Kids, colleges, and eventually, it's just a matter of time, the professional game.
If you continue to deny my work, the world will deny my work. But men, your men, continue to die. Their families left in ruins. Tell the truth.
Also today, ESPN has reported that the NFL actually backed away from funding this new study that was just announced today. The NFL has given $30 million to the National Institutes of Health. ESPN said it refused to let that money be used for the BU-led study. The NFL has pushed back, saying that's not true, that the NIH decides how its studies are funded and decided to do this all on its own. What's actually going on here with this back and forth?
My understanding is when that grant was submitted, it was going to be the NFL's money they gave to the foundation for NIH, which they had veto control over.
And okay, so in that foundation, they're responsible for raising donations.
They work with corporations,
yeah.
Right, to bring corporate money in. And so I mean, the NFL may be true in what they're saying that the NIH controlled the budget, but the reality is our understanding is this was supposed to come from that NFL pot. They refused, and then the NIH really, to their credit, put together the funding to make sure this very important study still happens.
ESPN suggested that if in fact that's what went down, that the NFL might have backed off funding this because Robert Stern, the physician who's leading the study, has been publicly critical of the NFL. But I was wondering if there might be something bigger at stake. It would seem to me that if you come up with a living diagnosis, that's going to pose an existential threat to the NFL, because you might have active players. I know there are already some players walking away earlier in their career, but if you could actually find out in your lifetime if you had this, I would think it's going to scare people a lot more and maybe make it hard to do business. Am I right about that?
I think there might, I can't speak for the NFL, but I certainly, if I was they were having internal discussions, that is something they should be very aware of, that every year they can slow down a living diagnosis, which is what they did by delaying even this study getting started, will help their bottom line. Because when we can diagnose this in living people, I mean, imagine that when the day we can put a high school football team into a scan that'll tell us if they have CTE, and suddenly we find out 10% of high school football players already have this. That could be the end of high school football.
I got to ask you, do you think, and I never played football, I'm way too scrawny to have done it, but I've been amazed as this whole conversation has unfolded, thanks in large part to you, at how attached people are to football as sort of an American ritual, despite these huge red flags that are being raised. So let's say that we come up with a living diagnosis and that you can actually identify in high school kids, college kids, that they're developing this disease. Wouldn't a whole bunch of people go ahead and say, well, we're going to have them play it anyway?
Above the age of 18, yes, that would be allowed. But I mean, I think the question is, can we give children a degenerative brain disease while they're children when they don't understand the consequences? I mean, I think ethically our answer is no, we can't. And so if we know the sports are doing this, we can't allow kids to play.
I got to mention that in a recent interview with 60 Minutes, Roger Goodell, the NFL commissioner, touted the NFL's funding of research at BU, not this study, but other research, as proof that the league is taking the problem of CTE seriously. Let's take a look at what he had to say.
Are you concerned about what they may find? Do you worry that you're sowing the seeds of your own destruction?
No, we want facts. We think the facts will help us develop better solutions. And that's why we're advancing medical research. That's why we're funding directly to Boston University on some of this research.
What's your take on what Goodell had to say? Is that convincing?
Well, I mean, he gets paid a lot of money to say things that sound
$40 million
and true.
a year, right?
Exactly, but I mean, obviously that's not true. And of course, they're not even funding us directly. They gave us one-time gift in 2010 that was spent years ago. Now they're funding again through NIH, Dr. McKee's work. Now they're pulling these games with Dr. Stern's work. I mean, it's a shame, but I'm just really proud of our team at BU for winning every competitive grant NIH has put forward and leading the charge on this.
Just in closing, tell me a little bit about Robert Stern and what sort of researcher he's going to be.
Well, I'm investing in him personally. I mean, he's the key to having a treatment for this. I mean, I've worked with for 8 years, a man of great integrity, and a man that I'm putting my hope in.
All right, Chris Nowinski, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.